Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Joining me tonight is Professor Pixel, RDV, and Eglantine. Tonight we are covering the best movies of 2021 so far. Yeah, tonight, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the films that we think deserve some merit as far as talking. Obviously, not all the big films, certainly not all the films for the year have been out yet. There's been a lot of change around with COVID, but I'll start off by saying I think for me personally, not seeing nearly as many films as you guys do, I think I've seen more films on TV at home that were released in 21 than I did in theaters just because of the way things are. That being said, there's definitely some interesting films. So let's go around the horn. Let's start off with Professor Pixel, the millennial man of the group, the young one. Give us one of the movies you think's one of the best ones of 21 so far.
All right. Well, I know there's going to be some disagreement about it, but The Suicide Squad is going to be my first pick for one of the top movies of 2021. It is truly better than I expected it to be. When you have something that's supposed to be like a semi-sequel, most of the time it doesn't pan out. This pans out, stands its own ground, has a fantastic cast. The director did a fantastic job, and it's really just a solid movie.
I got to tell you, you shouldn't feel embarrassed by that one at all. In all honesty, it was something I put on the list just in case. I didn't know how many times we were going to go around. This is what we wanted from the original Suicide Squad. We finally got it. I think the only thing that the first one really did well was make people realize this is what it should be. It should be fun. It should have been bloody. It should always, be on the edge a little bit. Like you said, an amazing cast. We got Starro the Conqueror. I'm loving the comic book movies that are turning into comic books on screen. Finally, we're getting some accurate stuff here. I don't think the loss of Will Smith made a difference. It's a great cast. One thing they realized was if you don't care about who they are, you don't care about what happens to them. So they made sure that they gave you time with all the characters, and it was just a ton of fun. So you shouldn't be embarrassed. I think it was definitely deserving to be on at least a top 10 list somewhere so far.
It's less of embarrassed, more that I know some people here don't care for it. So.
Oh, Venkman, you're not a fan?
I like the original one better. This one, yes, I do agree. They give you more comic book stuff, more gore. I just didn't care for the fact that they decided to kill off one of my favorite characters, and that was Boomerang.
You know what? I was a little disappointed in that as well, but that was the character they had to get rid of to show you that even the ones you care about could possibly be killed here. And I got to tell you, his wasn't the death that made me go, holy crap.
Well, I would have bet I had his towards the end going at Star would have been more like that.
They needed.
He's a backstabber. I would have loved that, him just trying to save himself and then screwing someone else over. That would have been more sense to me than Peacemaker.
With him turning on the crowd? Yeah, but Peacemaker is capable enough to actually fight people like Bloodshot or Bloodsport, whatever his name was. Overall, though, that's one little scene out of an entire movie.
It's not just a scene. There's a few things, but I don't want to go too in depth into it.
Right. We could do a whole other video for this one.
Like I said, I did what it's supposed to do. It got people interested into the DC stuff, and hopefully Warner Brothers realized, hey, this is what they like. They love the radar stuff.
Actually, surprisingly enough, going off of what you just said, a lot of people are now seeing Marvel's kind of in decline, but DC, if they keep up with this after Shazam, after Aquaman, now Suicide Squad, they seem to be passing up Marvel because Marvel, people are starting to get past the chocolate and down to the vanilla as far as Marvel's concerned. There's no flavor there anymore.
Marvel got rid of their fan favorites. You got rid of Chris Evans. You got rid of Robert Downey Jr. I don't see you have Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor, but I don't see many people going like, oh, Brie Larson or all this stuff. It's the big hitters are gone from Marvel.
Well,
I mean,
we'll see.
Hawkeye.
I think the timing of COVID and all that too, and these release dates
Yeah.
have affected, the popularity of people being woke and all the
Yeah.
stuff going on in social media too. So I think that adds into what you guys are saying. But RDV, let's stick with you as far as movies for this year. What do you've got on your list?
Like I said, I kind of go with Pixel list. I know as far as mine. I probably get flack for this because I like what I like. I don't really consider what would be the best as far as the best to what I think it is, personally for myself. And I'll go with Black Widow. I thoroughly enjoyed that all the way through. It was just for a movie that was waiting forever, like it could have been a horrible flop. It could have been New Mutants. No, how many years you waited for that? Just for it to be let down. I was happy with it.
Okay. I mean, guys, these are two movies. Obviously, I don't even bother watching or seeing, so I have no comment on. Maybe you guys obviously have seen Black Widow, right?
Yeah, they made a movie, and we're gonna put that right up on the fridge, right here, Marvel. Good job, you. Good job, you. You made a movie.
It comes up to a note that I was going to say. 2 Marvel movies released this year. Neither of them are on the list. That speaks a lot. And it's not. I actually do enjoy a good bit of Black Widow. There's a lot of it that I do enjoy. I recognize the flaws, but it isn't enough for me to say, wow, this movie is one of the best I've seen all year. That's just not the case.
I'm just gonna say I have, when it comes to a lot of movies that come out, a lot of them don't keep my attention. I get bored really easily. This was something. This had enough humor. It had enough action to it. It was fast paced.
Actually, you guys know what I have against the Black Widow. I think
You hate women.
Yes, of course, yeah. The Marvel has started doing in the last few movies. Marvel has started doing something that I really do not agree with, and that really shows in Black Widow. They have a second unit go out and film all the action scenes. Then they bring in the actors to go, oh my gosh, he's riding a motorbike at us. What? And they're not really there. They're not. And the action is also sometimes filmed before the entire script is finished. So in Black Widow, to me, this stood out more than any of the other movies where the action didn't quite match the story. And the story, in my opinion, as I've said, is actually pretty good. The two little girls who grew up as government assassins being raised by these other 2 government assassins, thinking that they actually had a real family when they didn't. I thought that was far more interesting than some guy trying to mind control a whole bunch of women to take over the world. That it just seemed there was a story that would have been grounded in realism that was squashed by ridiculousness.
I like it because it was a popcorn movie. That's it entertained me. It did what it's supposed to do. So that's why I like it. It's not my only movie. I have another pick, but I'll wait for that. So.
Well, we're going around the circle here.
Yeah,
So, that brings it up to you for one of your selections for 2021 movies that you've seen so far. Which one do you think's pretty good?
Well, something that I thought was pretty good in the beginning of the year. I wanted to talk about it because I know not a lot of people have. And when they do, they bring up the politics of the people who backed the film. And it's a movie called Run, Hide, Fight. You and I don't know if you remember, there was a Stephen King book. You wrote it as Richard Bachman called Rage, where a kid goes in and holds the school hostage. Yeah, really good story. They would never do today. This is these two guys and a girl go into a school and they hold kids hostage. They shoot up a couple of classrooms, and one of the girls, it's kind of like a Die Hard scenario. One of the girls, her dad, played by Tom Jane, you actually see her training with him, and he's teaching her to shoot. It's not superhero stuff,
Oh, she's a country girl.
Yeah,
Dad's just teaching her, all those kinds of things. Yeah,
and so she knows how to fight with a knife. She knows how to. Well, my dad taught me that when we were young, because that's what you needed to know. If you're in the woods, you need to know how to use a knife. You need to know how to use a bow staff. You need to know how to use a gun and a rifle and so forth. And so she had learned that. So when these kids come into school, she actually makes it outside, and then she goes, she stops because she sees kids, trying to get out the windows. So she goes in to help, and it becomes like it comes like a Die Hard film. And I thought this was actually a pretty decent action film. And they had some really good scenes in it. She actually gets one of the kids. She manages to capture them. She doesn't kill everybody because she does the ones that make her, basically. Mm-hmm. But there's one where she's like, why? And she talks about one of the kids that she knew that got killed. And this kid just lays it out. And this is one of the things that got people mad at this movie, is that this kid lays it out because they bullied, nobody noticed me, blah, 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 blah. And she goes, she didn't need to die for that. And she just, there's no blaming the gun. There's no blaming the blame falls on the person who carried the gun in and started shooting. And it was produced by Ben Shapiro's company.
Oh, yeah.
And so every piece of every review, the politics are.
Well, he fronted the money for it, really. So I mean,
yeah, he didn't make it.
Who's the actor, the father in there that helps out?
Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane. There you go.
Nice.
He's in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you look at all the reviews and everything, it's all about the politics, all about Ben Shapiro, and not enough about the movie. The movie works. The movie is good, and the movie does what I think is right. It places the blame on the freaking kids and not society, not the parents, it's the people who did it. And I just thought it was a really good story, and I think it deserves to be talked about. And
it feels like an 80s movie, though, doesn't it?
So you have seen this on there?
Yes, I have seen it. It's solid. I agree with you. I was surprised by how solid it was, because at first I thought, is this going to be one of these cheerleader rah-rah type films where we're going to be like, yeah, whatever. And it turned out not to be. I don't think they had a lot of hubris, a lot of pride, if you will, in it too. They just kind of said, okay, this is the situation. This is what's going in. They allowed it to be graphic. They allowed what we would want to see shown on film in a situation like to be shown on film. And, I agree. And I hate saying because it sounds so weak, but it does work. And it's definitely not a bad film. Thomas Jane's fine there as a father. And I think the best thing about the movie is not all that stuff, is the fact that you see a positive relationship between a man and his daughter. And it's one of those things that no matter what, if you have a child, your job as a parent is to do the best you can with what you got, teach them some of the skills that you know, and you definitely see it. And in this case, it happens to have some value in society for her too. But she's obviously a hero. She's a very strong woman in it. You could say it's a very positively feminist movie.
What movie is this again?
It's called Run, Hide, Fight.
Okay.
Which is basically the
you got zero pub because of all the stuff involved.
Right.
The comparisons to certain things and names of schools I won't say, online right now, but just ignore it and watch it, and you'll be fine.
The title refers to what you're supposed to do in the case of a school shooter. You're supposed to first run. If you can't run, hide. If you can't hide, fight. Don't just sit there and be a victim. Mm-hmm. You do something, because if they're going to kill you, you could either die on your knees or on your feet. Basically it. But absolutely, one of the things that I will mention, and then I'll leave you to it, is one of the great things about this is the kid that she captures is much bigger than her. And if the kid got a hold of her, he would beat the ever-loving snot out of her, even if he was nerdy kind. She does not overpower anyone his size. She outsmarts them.
Yes, exactly.
And that's one of the things that, I'm kind of sick of the 3-foot woman beating the shit out of the 6'5" guy thing. It's a trope that just wouldn't exist, and I'm glad they didn't put that in here. All right.
I agree. That's a solid flick. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm gonna go with one that I saw recently. Believe it or not, it's a Western. It stars Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. It's called Let Him Go. A lot of films, like I say, got delayed, or instead of going to theaters, they got put online or whatever. And so I just happened to be flipping around and going, what is this? Oh, Diane Lane's in it too. Let me just start watching it. And then I saw that my boy Jeffrey Donovan's in there, and he always plays goofballs over the top. I said, all right. But what sucked me in here is this is a kind of movie that's around the 60s, it feels like. It's beautifully shot. So it's so gorgeous. And all it is this is an older couple that all they want to do is try to take their grandson back from a family member, and that's really all there is to it. But the way it goes about, when you see the relationship between Diane Lane and Kevin Costner as an older married couple that have had some trauma, which you do get to see, and I'm trying not to say too much if you haven't seen it, but bottom line is things happen. They go to pick this kid up somehow, and the family that they're with is not a good family. That's all it is. That's all that happens, and it's a 2-hour film. Things happen the way they should, I guess, for lack of a better term to say it. But I found myself going, God, for a movie that doesn't have maybe about 100, 200 words in there, it was compelling, and it made me want to sit there and watch it. And I know that we've talked about a little bit, some of us, that, Diane Lane being a very good actor. She's aged incredibly well. She plays the grandma in here. Her and Kevin Costner's chemistry as they just totally make it. But some of the side characters too do their job. They do it effectively. It's like a look into like the way the family unit was thought of in small towns, a little bit more preciously than maybe what some people might think of it today, and what they're trying to do and why it's so important to them. And I was thoroughly entertained. I wish there were more movies out there like this too. So if you haven't seen it, it's called Let Him Go.
Awesome.
All right.
Obviously, you guys have not seen it.
Well, no, but he did a movie.
into it.
It actually sounds like a movie he did a while back called Black and White with Octavia Spencer, where it was like his son or daughter was married to a black person, and they died, and so he's raising this child, and Octavia Spencer wants to take him because they're going to be thought of as black. So so they had like a custody battle. It's kind of it sounds a little bit similar, but of course without the racial aspect of it.
All right, so going around, that's one iteration in our group. Professor Pixel, give us another one that's one of your best ofs for 2021 so far.
My next one actually has nothing to do with comic books. It's a movie called The Little Things, and it is a neo-noir thriller. It stars,
Noir. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it stars the man, Denzel. We've been talking about him. Jared Leto and Rami Malek. And it's just a really, you get what it's going for. This movie was actually written, speaking of delays, was written in the 90s. And it was set for like Spielberg to direct it. And it took years until finally the guy who wrote the script said, okay, I'm going to direct it myself. And I think there's a lot of, funnily enough, little things about it that make it kind of special. And if you just want a solid performance from Denzel, and even though he's working with people he doesn't care for, he brings it as always.
Yeah,
I
liked
think,
it.
I think for this film, we talked about Denzel in a couple of films, Bone Collector being one of them recently. Denzel said that one of the films that he regretted turning down, it's the only one that I've heard him say this to, was Seven. And so this almost reminded me of it a little bit. It's not nearly like that kind of a film, but it's heavy on mood. It's heavy on vibe. Again, to me, E, I know you're getting ready to say something. I'll hand it over here to you. I thought it was a great film. I enjoyed it as well. This, to me, felt like an 80s type movie. It had that kind of vibe. I'm not going to say it's a buddy cop film, because a lot of times we think that's like a funny ha-ha thing. But, the only thing that might turn you off in here is, the fact that Rami Malek always acts and sounds the same way, like, I'm going to read a comic now. I mean, I don't get why people think he's a great actor, but he is good in here. I will say this. I think it's an underrated movie, and I didn't even know it was out till recently. But what were you going to say, E?
I was going to say a lot of what you just said. I thought Malik was the weakest, and I think that's one of the reasons. That tone that he had, it's kind of droll, which works when he's playing Freddie Mercury. But when you're doing other roles, we need to see someone else other than Freddie Mercury. That being said, I did like Denzel Washington in this. I like the fact that he's playing a character who's aged up. I love The Equalizer, but by the time Equalizer 2 came along, I'm like, yikes, when you start doing this run, it's time to maybe think about more dramatic roles. I thought it's noirish, or the more horror aspect of it I liked as well. It's a decent film. I don't know if it would make my top 10 at the end of the year, but definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and there's several that I haven't seen too, so I don't know if I'd go quite horror, but and again, it's relative compared to what else is out there too, so that's just how it is. RDV, have you seen this film?
No, I have not. I've heard of it. I haven't got around to watching it. There's quite a few on my list I have to watch. It's
Same here
YouTube
too.
and watching movies.
Yeah, it's a lot actually. So, well, actually, RDV, let's go around to you too. What have you got on your list for best of 21?
Well,
so
mine is the one we actually reviewed this about a month or two ago. It's a Guy Ritchie film. This is Wrath of Man with Jason Statham, Josh Hartnett, Jeff. I think is it Jeff Donovan, or it's Jeffrey Donovan. That's what it is. This is about a guy. He basically is. It starts off with basically his son gets killed. He witnesses a bank robbery. Scott Eastwood, and they're basically kills his son. I know. And Scott Eastwood is one of the. I'll just say this quickly. Scott Eastwood is forever going to be a B-list actor, or maybe even C. He cannot get the star power, and the roles he takes, he doesn't fit him. But this actually fit him for being a bad guy, a villain, just being the crook. And so basically, Jason Statham goes, gets involved with the armed security guards, service, he learns how to drive the truck and all that stuff. Because and as you're piecing this all the way through, it is just a wonderful film. I know people are going to say, Jason Statham, you've seen one, you've seen them all. No. This is a lot more in-depth, more keeps you kind of guessing. I said I love the fact, the way he gets his revenge on here. The whole entire cast in here. Josh Hartnett, I haven't seen him since like Black Hawk Down. I guess apparently he was in the other series that was on Showtime or something with
Penny Dreadful.
Yeah,
very
Dreadful.
Good,
I never watched it. But the last time I saw him was like 40 Days, 40 Nights, somewhere around there. So I haven't seen him all these years. Him coming in playing usually would be like a Matt Dillon role, playing like a snarky, know-it-all guy. The security guard here, and then like they get robbed, and Jason Statham just puts on a guy, and they're all like, because when they first they test you, your shooting stuff, he barely passed, but he just he was nailing guys just like he was just like sharpshooting. So there's a little bit of comedy in this, situational humor, but wrapping it up, like I said, it is a great movie. Guy Ritchie has been known for making good movies. If you haven't seen this, check it out. It is just fun.
When you and I reviewed it, RDV, I think one of the things that stood out to me about it was it's a Guy Ritchie film, but it's not cute, and it's not a transporter guy film. It's serious. The Jeffrey Donovan. It's the year of Jeffrey Donovan. He was fantastic in here. Holt McNally, who plays the guy that ends up being compromised, he was fantastic in a show called Mindhunter, I think on AMC or whatever, for a couple seasons, or Netflix. I totally recommended it. I think it's been canceled. He's solid too. This is a great supporting cast kind of thing. So it's a movie that has Jason Statham, but a bunch of other good actors in it too. So it's definitely better than the typical fare that he does. Not that it sucks, but a lot of it's remakes or rehashes. So I agree with you. It's a good film.
Yeah, because I agree with it. He's done some movies that were transporter. He has to do his fight thing. He slicks himself oil. He has to take his shirt off. This one, you don't see him taking his shirt off. This is him more of a serious role, more of an older role. And I just love the whole aspect of it. Al Pacino's in here too. Mixed up, and actually, Al Pacino. Sorry, Anthony Garcia is the cop and knows who he is. He says
"Oh yeah,
you do your job. You clean up my streets, and then you leave." And then we're good, because he's like, why should I get involved? I can just have another guy take out the criminals for me, So I thought that was kind of cool. Even though Anthony Garcia has a small presence in this, I just love seeing even cameos from people. Anthony Garcia, like I said, I don't really watch a lot of movies with him. these guys are like now up in their age, are maybe not doing as many roles. They're popular, so to bring him in there is kind of cool. You know, that he got a small part. And the guy Holt, he is phenomenal in this. You know, he's the guy. It's like, you know, he's the one that's training him and stuff, and all. And he starts to question stuff, and then he tries. You know, it's just the whole thing. You know, Jason Statham in this movie, he's the man's man. You know, he's what Scott Eastwood was supposed to be, but he could never be that. So they made him the little bitch.
He does. You're absolutely right. Scott Eastwood, he's a good-looking guy. I don't know if he's a bad actor, but there's just something about him that's not working. And I'm not saying he's trying to act like his father
it's
or
the
fill in his
charisma.
shoes. There's just something about him that I'm not buying. Like, I don't look at him as a dude, bro. I don't look at him as an action star, but he's got to be a full-on heel. He's got to be that. But maybe he should just be that cocky rich bitch that hides or something. You know, 21st century woke bad villain. There's got to be something like that for him. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking more about Scott Eastwood in the future.
Just have him do the roles where he's just snorting coke and he's got a gun. There you go. He give him the gangster. You know,
he played the devil in a Western a while back.
Diablo, I think it was called.
Yeah.
I bought it and I was like, man, I wish I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
I know you've got a list that's 10 miles long. Give me one.
I do, and this is a movie. It kind of struck me with how good I thought it was. It's one like there's a couple of really good movies this year, but not a lot of A movies in my opinion. This one was, and I wasn't expecting it, and I'm quite surprised. It's a documentary about the actor Val Kilmer, and it's called Val. And it just really hit me. This is so he filmed throughout. Anytime he was on a movie set, he always was recording, and he filmed all the time just to document his life. And this is kind of the culmination of that. Now that he's had throat cancer and he can't act as much as he wants. And you just go through his life, his journey as an actor. From you actually get to see the behind the scenes. I'm pretty sure some of it's cleaned up, but there's still some skeletons that are no longer in the closet, which I appreciated. The thing that really got me was he's on the convention circuit now, and he says, "I never thought I would be one of those people who would have to live on off of his past." And except for that's how it is. And it's not because he fell out of popularity, although he was doing some direct to video movies by the time he got throat cancer. His last big movie was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and then he started doing straight to videos. I just found it incredibly interesting. It was a really good look into an actor's life where it humanizes, because it's very easy to only see a person as what they are on screen, or worse, what they are in the tabloids and the magazines and the articles and so forth. I really liked this film. It was and that surprised me. I thought I was going to watch it and like it or be indifferent to it, but I did not think that it would have I would have been thinking about it for as long as I did. So I know you guys made a video about it, and that's actually what made me. I saw you guys' video. I was like, oh, that's out. Let me watch it. And so I know you guys saw it. So what did y'all think?
Well, I'll go first if it's all right, Rob. I originally saw it. It was released on Amazon, and I saw like, oh, it's a documentary. I'm like, oh, it's pretty long. I'm like, can I sit through this? I'm like, I know. I watched him at Top Gun, watched him as Batman, and all those tops. Is it Top Secret? Top Secret. I was confused. One's a popcorn, one's not. I think it's Top Secret. So getting into watching it, at first it was kind of slow, but what really helped was the fact he's got his son doing the.
Oh my gosh, he was spot on too.
Yeah, his son doing the commentary, talking about it and stuff in his dad's own words. Because I don't when they recorded this, apparently his throat must have been still point, and I just felt bad for the guy. No matter what he did, it's the fact that he's got a thing. He can either talk or breathe. So he has to plug the hole just to talk, and you say he's barely, then as soon as he lets go, you hear the air rush, and like that is the most comfortable thing. And obviously, since then, after this is done, he's started another movie, and got rid of the thing. He's fixed it, so he's back to be talking normal. But I couldn't imagine living and just the whole thing. You are moved by this because he's at that down in Texas. They're doing a screening of Tombstone, and he's sitting. He just gets so overwhelmed. He just the thoughts come in, but as soon as he comes to these places, like it's just the positive reinforcement. So many people, and he's like, I'm not a big star, like but people really love his acting.
They love what he does. I mean, he's one of those actors. He was famous and he was a name. Let's not take that away from him. But he was, even though he came up around the same time as Tom Cruise, let's face it, Tom Cruise was huge.
Yeah.
But the thing is he did Tombstone. He was in Top Gun with Tom Cruise. There are a lot of geeks out there that love Willow. He got to be Batman. One of my favorite quotes was, "Every boy wants to be Batman, but they don't want to be in a movie about him. They don't want to make a movie about him," because he talked about how restrictive the costume was and how he was expecting to be able to act with all these great actors, and he couldn't hear them most of the time. And
the thing is, other thing too, he said about is that when you're in the suit and he's kind of the person that wants to be like Jim Carrey was in the role he had, or Two-Face. They just had room, the expression and all stuff. He just had to be silent brutally and so and that's it. It was uncomfortable. You sweat, and then like I said, like you have to get out of there. You feel claustrophobia. You can't step on your own. Someone has to hold you up. It's I mean, and I can hear Brown in the background, but well, do you sign up for this? What do you expect? Get your paycheck and leave. But really made me feel for him because the fact he's growing up, his brother died. Drawn into the pool, had a seizure. His brother was the one that really got him, was doing the movie stuff. And he said when he went to, I think it's called, what's it called? The studio he went to New York. It's called, starts with a J, isn't it? I forgot what it's called. Where everybody gets a scholarship. Juilliard. That's what it is. Yeah. And I love how he said it. He's like, my parents, their marriage is falling apart. Like my brother, died, and I'm just accepted Juilliard. I'm here. I'm homesick. Just the whole thing. It's just like it just felt really humanizing. I'm not gonna say because there's always on my head maybe these maybe some of this is made up. I honestly couldn't if it was made up. I was no able to tell. It just felt so real, generic. And it's just this movie engrossed me all the way through. You learn about his personal life, his mom, all the little jokesy stuff, likes to play, up to the point where he's like, I'm gonna go meet my daughter now. She's next door. She's the door's next door.
Yeah, they live like in a duplex kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that.
So, what'd you think about it there, Rob?
The more I think about it, the more I didn't really care for it. I thought it was done well, and I appreciated the fact that this wasn't a gimmick like the last 5-10 years. He had done this since as a child. So I found that interesting. I think the top level here, though, have nothing to do with him, though. Calling a documentary a film, I've always had issues with because you're documenting, you're saying stuff. So to me, I just look at it as a puff piece, no matter who's putting it on for whatever. And I think in his case, too, as moved as you can be by watching it because he seems sincere. He's an actor. He's been involved in all this stuff. He knows exactly what he's trying to do there. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried making this to prove to Tom Cruise that he could still be around and get some sympathy.
That may actually be. That may actually be. But
so the point being is that while it's moving and this and that, there's a lot of things out there that are documentaries that might be paint drying on the wall, boring or whatever, but interesting to a certain group. So it's a bit of a stretch for me to call the movie, but I wasn't turned off by it. I did like it. It was slow in a few parts, and a part of me after a while was going, well, I don't know how much more about him that I really want to know. And as callous as that sounds, it's like, yeah, you do get to be Batman. Don't say anything negative about it because you've had an opportunity that nobody ever gets a chance to. And to your point, he was so big when we were young because he was barely older than us, and his star power never really went away. And I think I came away with the idea of the fact that even before he had throat cancer or whatever, he was pursuing doing things that he wanted to do, and that's it. And I give him a lot of respect for that too. He doesn't have to be mainstream. He's just doing it differently than like a Tom Cruise would or somebody else.
That was one of the things, you know, after he did the Batman, after he did the more commercial films, it was like he even said something in the movie along the lines of, you know, he studied for Shakespeare and now he's, you know, dressing up like the Batman. What's going on here? No, it was Islands of Dr. Moreau that really broke it. And he was like, okay, there has to be a career change. And he started going for smaller projects, which ended up in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And if you like, what was it? The Good Guys. What was that movie called?
Goodfellas? Or no, Nice Guys.
Nice Guys, yeah. If you like Nice Guys, check out Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It is the same tone and everything. But yeah, as far as Val's concerned, absolute worked for me.
Pixel, did you see this?
No.
Okay.
Communist.
He's not a commie.
Pixel.
I do not care for documentaries, period. And I understand that this one, I do like Val Kilmer and the things I've seen him in, but not enough to see a documentary about it.
I think documentaries are now the oh, hey, guess what? We can cheaply make this and call it product instead of making $100 million movie like Flora's Lava and other shows too. It's like I don't mind them, but it just seems a little bit of a cop out, and it has nothing to do with him. You know, I think it's the nature of the business now.
I think as far as documentaries, it really works solely on who is about. You know,
you agree?
Well, because
obviously,
obviously you're not going to click on a movie documentary that's titled "I'm just not interested in the subject." But and yes, Val Kilmer being an actor, us being a movie channel, it kind of ties in. Let's check it out. Also, with Rob and myself, we came up with him. You know, we came up watching Val, and so there is a little bit of interest in the character and the person himself. What happened to him? I heard he got throat cancer. Let me find out about this. What's going on? The problem, I think, with documentaries as a whole right now is that you got 1 billion of them right now in 15-minute increments on YouTube, because if we don't do reviews, what do? We talk about the behind the scenes of comics, and we talk about the history and what happened with Jack Kirby. And basically my Jack Kirby video, that's a documentary. So one problem with that is that, and Rob touched on it, and I absolutely agree with him, that all documentaries, be it Val, be it anything, the editor will try to manipulate you. That's the whole point. There's not a whole bunch of documentaries that really are neutral on their subject. So in Rob's point, there are not a lot of actual documentaries. A documentary should be, this is the situation, and I'm just going to show it to you without trying to manipulate you. Even Val, to Rob's point, I absolutely agree with him, serves to manipulate the audience. So there you go.
I want the Michael Keaton documentary.
Hey, why not? Let's bring it on.
You never know.
Let's make it for YouTube.
Well, let's do this. We've got, I think, you're next, correct?
Oh, no, I just went. It's you.
Okay. So I was going to say we're going to do one last round. Because you went with Val. So we're going to go around there. However, I am going to skip my turn now because I want to go last. Pixel, let's start with you. Do you have one more or not? It's okay if you don't.
I'm actually struggling because I remembered that Boss Level came out this year, and that should have been on the list, even above
Which
the
one?
little things.
Boss Level.
But that's not my pick. My top movie of the year is actually a movie that was made like 4 years ago, and that is Zack Snyder's Justice League. I did not expect the Snyder Cut to actually be everything it was propped up to be, but it was, and more. And just when you compare it to the travesty of 2017, you realize that he was robbed.
He really was.
Because if people saw this in 2017, they would have been, breaths would have been taken away. And the fact that it took so long to finally get it, it needs time to shine, even though it's only technically a 2021 film. It is my top movie of this year.
So that's on my list. Thank you very much for bringing it up. That means I get to talk about it too. I'll tell you something. A lot of people, if you followed the Twitter feed, if you followed what people were saying about release the Snyder Cut, the people who were against it was saying adding in a few scenes is not going to fix this piece of crap. And they're right. That if you just put scenes in what we had, it would not have worked. But what ended up happening is everything that Josh Whedon had done was excised. It was gone. And so what got put in truly changed the narrative of the movie. And I think that was the big saving grace. You did these two movies, even though they have similar titles, Justice League, are absolutely different films. Yeah, they got the same plot, but they're absolutely different movies. It is the old adage, it's not what it's about, it's how it's about it. And this brings a lot more depth to all of the characters. And it added in Cyborg. I'm not one of those people who jumped down what's his name's neck for cutting out Cyborg, because when I watched it, I thought, wow, this is brilliant. But if the studio told me to cut 2 hours of the movie, those are the 2 hours I would cut, because your plot is, of course, saving the mother boxes, and his is the heart of the story. But it also, you could do without that and still follow the action, basically.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it is the heart of the story. So when you cut it out, you cut out a lot of the charm. You cut out a lot of the stuff that really sticks people to the story. That I do think that Cyborg and the Flash were the two that were served better by the Zack Snyder story as far as this is concerned. I agree with you. It's an excellent film. I loved it. Are we the only two that saw it?
I'm not watching that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it's 4 hours. I wouldn't think you would sit for a 4 hour.
I watched it. Like I said, like it's miles better than what 2017 finished, but I don't think they're going to go through with it, especially if this Batman.
Oh no. This is it. They have said so many times we're not doing the Snyderverse. This was a one-time thing. Although everybody now wants to see how the Goyer cut for Suicide Squad, because Warner Brothers tore that movie apart to make this that ended up on screen.
What I think they'll do is they might do another Justice League movie or something like that, but they might take key notes, from how this was far better than the crap they got before, and they might implement into their next movies if they're smart. But
yeah, it would be better if they did, in all honesty.
Especially with remember, we still have The Flash coming out, which has Ben Affleck in there as Batman and Michael Keaton as Batman.
And Michael Keaton at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that yes, but that truly speaks to how good this film is for even people who weren't convinced of the Snyder Cut itself. Now are on the train of restore the Snyderverse. That's just how great this film was. Oh my gosh.
I will go so far though to say that I don't think people like Rob would enjoy it as much as us. We're the comic book collectors. It is absolutely a comic book movie. This is not an open door to new viewers, and that, in my opinion, is where Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder got it wrong.
I will say this though. They opened the door to Dark Side. Give me a Superman Apocalypse movie.
There you go. That would work.
What about you, RDV? What you got one more for us?
Yeah, I'll give you real quickly. And this is actually one Pixel just mentioned. It actually was on my list. And it's Frank Grillo's Boss Level with Mel Gibson as the bad guy.
We covered this at the beginning of the year.
It's a fun movie. It's on Hulu. I think it had a budget of $2 million. Wasn't that big, But it's about a guy. He every morning something happens. He repeats the same day over and over again. Frank Grillo, and this is what proved to me: Frank Grillo is an action star. Why is he not getting more action, like big blockbuster roles? It just the dude's awesome. I've rarely seen a movie that he's in that he didn't give a solid performance. That being said, I'll just say this. The guy repeats it over and over again. He's got these 10 or 7 little weird assassins that keep trying to kill him, and he progresses through each of them. He learns more, and he kind of gives up his on his outs with his wife. They're both I don't think they're divorced, but they're about to. He has a kid, a son. He doesn't really know. He's been basically a soldier this whole time. He's been like a merc, or what do you call it? And now he has to somehow try and save his wife and stop the world from being destroyed because but it was really cool as though he learns things. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day, but action. He learns how to sword fight from Michelle Yeoh. She teaches him how to fight, and he learns how to take on each different assassin. And I love how Mel Gibson's like, how does this? It's like this guy he's impressive, and he realized you're attached to the machine, the Osiris machine. And I forgot who the girl is in here. It's one that plays his wife, but that's not important. But if you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. If you have Hulu, watch it. You don't have to pay for it. You already paid for Hulu. Go watch it. It's short. It's sweet. It's awesome. It'll give you more respect for Frank Grillo.
Picks.
My name is Guan Yin, and I have done this.
Every single time.
This movie is just truly a lot of fun. I forgot that it came out this year. It's been that long.
Yeah.
I forgot that it was a 2021 movie. And so while I was thinking about my list, I realized, wait a minute, this movie came out this year. It should have been on mine. But no, I'm glad you talked about it because this movie is it has so many layers to it. Frank Grillo, he's able to connect with his son and he's able to save his wife there. And it looks like they'll be able to patch things up, but it leaves it open. And it's not even open to a sequel type thing. It's just there's so many story elements that I loved in watching this movie. And just on top of that, all the deaths were great.
The bar scene is probably the best thing. He thinks the reason I don't know where he is because he's a tracker. He's like, the guy walks in his pants. He's like, here, can you help me? The guy's like, I'm out of here.
I saw this long after you guys. I kept getting it mixed up with the VFW. And so I was like, wait, no, this is that movie the guys talked about. So I saw it maybe about a month ago or something. And this is a lot of fun. Now, the thing is, there have been about 100 time loop movies that have come out in the last year or two. This just seems to be one of the fads that are going around. I like the fact that this gave it a time limit because for most of them, it's like, well, you've got an entire day, which gives a lot of time for dialogue and thought. But this is, as it's titled, boss level, like a video game.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to deal with your day, and you only got this much time. Okay, well, he found out why he only has this much time, so now he has this much time. Okay, well, he figured out what he could do to get this much time, and that's one of the things I thought that made this movie different. And I got to tell you, yeah, that girl got irritating. I am. Yeah, that was
Yin, and
I need a project.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's one of those movies where I watch them like, is this a good movie or is it just fun? And you know what? I think it is. Yeah. I think it is. As far as goes. Why does Frank Grillo not get a lot of roles? Because it's not the 1980s. And while he's a great stuntman and a good action star, he's not the best of actors. And unfortunately, and you hear that word right there, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, they're not giving men action roles anymore. They're giving it to freaking what's that guy's name that plays Bruce Banner? And then they're CGing let's get the action stars in here and do some good old fashioned 1980s beat 'em up films.
So speaking of good versus entertaining or something else, I skipped on mine and we're going around the horn here. I'm gonna leave it to E. So E, I just wanted to spoiler free, do a maybe small little, I don't know which one to call them, rock and sock 'em robots with each other. Because the one movie I was going to put on there, because it's so over the top, so tremendous, so disgustingly addictive once you realize what kind of movie it is, would be Malignant. And you hated the film.
No, hold on. Okay, you introduce it. I'm gonna
Okay.
get my little background, and yeah, I'll come up after.
So this may be a preview of an upcoming video.
Has
It's
to
James
be.
Wan, who's done a lot of things, and I remember back in 2004, whenever it was, 2005, the tagline, "Oh yes, there will be blood," came out, talking about Saw. I thought that was kind of cute. That was mildly entertaining. I always thought he, or who he's involved with, always did a really good job with set pieces. I like the fact that their gore was an 80s version. And look, I don't want to see gore all the time, but in today's, we had enough gore movies in the 80s where we could pick and choose what gore kind of movies we want to see. Now there's just no gore at all. So if we see one, we're like, oh my God, it's so gory. And I'm like, no, not really. Malignant, I will say this, I know there's some topics you want to talk about. We could briefly talk about. I want to be very spoiler free about this one, which typically I don't.
Okay.
What made this movie great for me is I think he, as somebody that said, I am just going to troll everybody that's going to see this movie. I'm going to troll everything about this movie. I'm going to make this movie so absurd. That's the whole point to it. And I'm going to disguise it in what I do best, because you're not quite sure what's going on. You have an idea early on, then it changes in a second act. And then you're like, okay, I get it. But then you're like, okay, so how are they really going to do the third act? And then they get to the third act, and it's so friggin' bonkers. I want to stand up and clap, because it's that term that I'm going to mispronounce here. It's those Italian Gaio kind of movies, or whatever they call it. It's exactly what it is. It's not an American film. It's not the film that you and I grew up watching in the 70s and 80s and 90s. It's not like that at all. This has a very disgusting European sensibility about it, which almost disgusts you. But then when you look at it from a different point of view, you're like, oh, it's supposed to be kind of silly and goofy and this and that. But he's trying so hard to present it not that way. It works. Down to the horrible acting between the detective and his female partner. I mean, there's so many things that if you just watch this as a film, you go, this is horrible. But then you realize, wait a minute, it fits, and this is why. It's tremendous. Your quick take, E.
Okay, this if you guys heard us talk last week, I brought this up, and it's this movie is just horrible, and you have to watch it. That's what I said. It's horrible, and you have to watch it. But the thing is so was My Bloody Valentine. So was a lot of the Friday the 13th movies I love, or Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. The thing is, and it might be a case of Malignant may turn out to be more fun to talk about than it is to watch if I watch it again, because I really do want to. This movie, horrible acting across the board. It's just
but
from start to
intentional.
finish.
That's the point.
See, I don't know if it is.
I believe that it is.
See, and I think that helps. And one of the things I said is there are scenes in here, it really comes off as if they meant to be over the top and they meant to be bonkers. But then there's scenes where they're playing it as if it was meant to be taken serious. And this
exactly.
is meant to be, yeah. So what I said originally was it feels like it's made by two different film crews. One, you're going to go film a serious horror film. You're going to be filming the freaking Matrix and make it a horror film. And it comes together, and it quite doesn't work very well, and you need to see this. And that's where I'm at on this film. It's putting it on a top 10 list. It could be number one. It could also be the worst film of the year. And that's one of the things where I got to tell you, this one movie that's got me confused on. But something you just said, it was like a big old epiphany. No, it's not epiphany. It's the epiphany. This is an ode to all horror films and all slasher films. Bear with me for a moment, and we should do this in a video. The beginning really plays like the 80s. And then you get into the haunted house era of the early 2000s, when you got the Japanese horror film renaissance, whatever you want to call it. And if you remember, except for Scream, there weren't a whole bunch of horror films except for a couple of slashers, which you do get here as well. And then it becomes the like a 2000s horror film. So I really do think, and I might be wrong, I'll have to watch this again, that if you watch the movie, you'll also see the evolution of the slasher movie in that film. I want to watch, it's a theory I've got. I want to rewatch it because I think this is one of the reasons why it seems all over the place bonkers. But yes, it is Basket Case. It really, that's the beginning part. The reveal part is just like Basket Case. And it's
a film that only until the very end of the movie you went, oh shit, I get why they named it that. And it makes sense. So it works. Even if you're like, yeah, really? It's kind of stupid, which I know is what you're probably thinking about. But here's what I'm going to say. He had the balls to go there and do it. And not just do it for like a split second and everything else. And as an extended chase scene too, in the Seattle Underground, which is kind of cool, and other stuff. It's a very slick, good-looking film, and I admit I can be somewhat seduced by a good-looking film. And a film's supposed to look good, so it's a pleasure to watch. And definitely feels, I don't know if horrific's the right word, but it has some really bad scenes that I was like, oh, that's a really dumb, stupid jump scare. Like you would expect with the cat coming out, meow, that's Friday the 13th. But then there's a scene of incredible violence in there that came out of nowhere. And you're like, oh my God. And within the first 10 minutes of the film, I did that and went, and I agree with you. I said the same thing. Was that intentional? Was this good? Was this bad? And then I started watching it. And I thought there was an overarching theme that people may have missed, including myself. And about halfway through, I got it. Pixel, you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, when it comes to good looking, it's a quote that I take from one of my brothers. And it's usually put towards actors and actresses. If I'm going to pay money to see something, I want it to look nice.
Yeah, you want your money's worth when you get something. I think he delivers here. But I think this is one of those movies that you just go, if people go there and think it's one thing and they bring that lens to it, a lot of people are going to have a different opinion about it. And that's where the confusion, I think, comes in about it too. It's not where you go, oh, it's just an action film, martial arts film where we're going to do this one style and it's this versus that. Okay, you understand the structure. You're watching it for other aesthetics. RDV and I have covered a lot of those here on the Xtreme Movie Show as we continue to do that. If you're watching a rom-com, there's certain things to go with that. Same thing with an Adam Sandler film. But if you just go, oh, Malignant sounds like a scary movie, let's go watch it, you're going to be like, what the? Because there's some really trippy visuals in here too, and some great practical effects. So I like what you had to say about being an ode to a lot of horror films, and maybe it kind of does it. So to me, I definitely think it's worth watching. But RDV, it's definitely not a movie I think you would like at all.
Here's my problem with it, and once again, I think everybody who likes horror films, Venkman doesn't. Everybody who likes horror films should see this film. But to me, I think if it was meant to be over the top, go over the top. If it was meant to be serious, go serious. And it's hard to do scary when you're going over the top because it could become a parody of itself.
This is like Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, I think they were trying to balance that. To you, it worked. To me, not as much. But both of us are saying, see this movie. And that's the important thing.
Yeah. All right. I mean, there you have it, guys. Best of 2021 movies so far, in no particular order on our combined list there, too. So we had roughly around 10, 12 of them there. Anywhere from comic book movies to horror movies to westerns to documentaries. There you go. It's been a while since we've done an updated list, and it was nice that you were here tonight so we could do that. RDV and I have done a few, and right now Pixel and I are starting season 3 of Twin Peaks. We've been getting a lot of traction on that, too. RDV and I have been continuing picking out, for the most part, action movies, going with stuff. We have our second request. RDV, I sent you a link off stage about it. We'll take a look at that too, a ninja film. But coming into October here soon, we're going to probably drop a few little extra things here and there as far as horror films or those things that are must watch, because 'tis the season, as they say. All right, for Professor Pixel, RDV, Englentine, everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, I'd like to say thanks for listening. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme.
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 It's not a tumor.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,